Okay, cool.
Welcome, everybody, to the Native Paranormal Crossroads. Today we have John Dover, Judy Sakanay, and John DeSouza. And we are so wonderful to have everybody come on board today. We have a special guest today. As you know, Judy is one of our favorites. She's our Bigfoot investigator. And she brought a friend on board today, and his name is John DeSouza. John DeSouza is a former FBI agent. He also has been given the X Files, the first person to ever, in his agency, to be able to address these X Files, and that's going to be a really wonderful show. And we are the Paranormal Rangers. Today, one of the Rangers is still out there promoting his book, The Paranormal Ranger. And there's a lot of Paranormal Ranger I'm saying today. It's becoming a tongue twister. But we want to introduce everybody, and we're going to start the show. John, would you like to introduce yourself today?
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle. You guys can hear me okay, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I am John DeSouza, FBI agent retired. And I was an FBI agent for over 25 years. And I worked violent crime cases, counterterrorism, and some paranormal cases as well. And it was a great experience for me. It helped me to meet and associate with people like Jonathan Dover and many people. And David Paulides, who has been hunting many of these situations for many, many years. And it's something that has helped me as uh, I've been helped by those associations to be a better investigator and to go after these topics and uncover the truth that's behind a lot of these topics in over the years. So I'm really happy to be here with you guys and happy to be able to learn a little more about these topics and be able to talk about them a lot more as well. Thank you so much, Michelle.
You're welcome, John. And Judy, would you like to tell us, the audience who have not seen you on our channel before, but recap who you are and how you came to be on the show?
Hi, my name is Judy Sackney. I'm my spirit name is Wachimadoan, meaning mountain song. I'm Cree First Nation from Treaty 9 territory. My late mom is from Attawapiskat First Nation, and my dad is from Fort Albany. And my dad raised us in Cochrane, Ontario, which is a small town, was off reserve. So, but I still consider the Treaty 9 territory. How I became on the show was I organized a Bigfoot event in Toronto, and it's an art exhibit, depictions of my artwork, of my interactions with the Bigfoot, which we call Ochi in our language in Cree. It's also known as Sasquatch, Sabe, and other indigenous names that all over the world, not just here in North America, all over the world we have. So that's how it became, because I contacted you guys to come on, join us on with the event. And now I contacted John DeSouza because there's so many reasons why. First of all, I like to say I am a fan of all of you guys, Jonathan Dover, John D'Souza. I followed him and his work, and it just fit in what we're doing at this event, at this art exhibit conference, Bigfoot conference that we organized in Toronto.
Oh, thank you. And John, give a little bit about who you are and the relationships to the show for those who have not seen you before.
Jonathan?
You talking about me?
Yeah, John Dover.
Okay, there's two Johns here, so we're
John
full of
1A
Johns.
and John B. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
you have to do.
Okay, so as you know, I've been in law enforcement for 31 years before I retired, and I was with the City of Winslow, Arizona Police Department, Navajo Nation Rangers, the National Park Service as a law enforcement technician, and with the historic preservation from Navajo, doing archaeological law enforcement. And so lots of experience. In 2000, I like to say that we were voluntold to investigate paranormal cases involving Bigfoot, hauntings, UFOs, and Navajo skinwalkers. And by 2000, I believe it was 2011, we decided to start talking in different conferences about our experiences between me and Stan Milford Jr. And so he has written a book. He got his book out first, and it is now on the bestsellers list. And mine is still in behind the scenes being worked on. I think I've got too much information with too many years. But that's me. And you've probably seen me on Ancient Aliens, Skinwalker Ranch, and Beyond Skinwalker, and the Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. And lately, there's a new alien investigation on Netflix that just came out. I believe that's the name of it. But I understand I was on there with George Knapp.
Well, thank you, John. I'm Michelle Miners, and I did a project up in the Uinta Basin called Skinwalker Ranch. That is my little bit of my background. Um, I also investigate the phenomena up there in the Uinta Basin for the last 6 years, maybe a little bit longer. Um, but that's who I am, and I was asked to become one of the paranormal rangers uh, at the request of Jonathan Dover and Stan Milford. And it's been a really wonderful addition to become one of the rangers and go out there and investigate and understand this phenomena and share our stories and our expertise with you, the audience. But today is really kind of exciting. I would like to have John discuss his experiences with the phenomena and what you covered as an FBI agent in your career.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. You know, during my career, we have had crypto creatures have been a sort of a peripheral topic, including Bigfoot. Uh, we always have numerous sightings and experiences that people have, but very few times have they been directly related to federal violations of the law. So, for that reason, I haven't had that much experience with crypto creatures like Bigfoot. However, the greatest experiences I've always had is, of course, from very professional hunters who have been who have been out experiencing this phenomenon for a very long time, and in different cases they've come forward as witnesses and talked in relation to other investigations that have come up, and they always give very reliable testimony because they are the people who know the outdoors, who know what is going on in the forest, and who are aware and have a lot of experience with this sort of thing. And their testimonies have always had similar characteristics in terms of the profile. Because whenever we've worked with issues in the FBI, you're always working with profiles that you're building, and we have profiles that we have built in relation to the Bigfoot creatures as well. And a lot of the characteristics they seem to share uh, over the expanse of years is that the phenomena is extremely physical. It's extremely physical. It's extremely real in this world and concrete. And however, whenever these hunters or these outdoorsmen have been pursuing the phenomena, this incredibly physical phenomena somehow tends to disappear. Somehow it tends to just go into the ether or something along those lines, where it becomes uh, not physical. It becomes not physical, and and we have never been able to solve why that is or how that is. Um, it's been very frustrating for investigators over the years, and it's been something that we need to definitely talk to someone like Jonathan Dover to find out how this is that this phenomena can just switch from physical to metaphysical in just an instant all the time, and it happens constantly. That's been my general experience with Bigfoot and crypto creatures in general over the years.
Well, I
It's
appreciate that.
it's. I was going to say it's a
Mhm.
very different type of investigation. You still use the tools that you were trained with, um, all the different types. And what we did, we didn't jump into it and say, "I wanted to do this." We were ordered to do these investigations, and we did them for 11 years before we finally decided to speak about them. And you don't divulge information because it's embarrassing. You'll be ridiculed. Pretty soon, your other officers will be coming around. They'll be saying, "Oh, how are you doing? Where's the tinfoil hat?" And the whole thing is based on ridicule. There has been so much of that uh, denial and ridicule in the past that today they actually had to change it from a UFO designation to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, because the term UFO carries so much stigma with it. If you were a pilot and you saw something unusual flying by your aircraft, if you reported it, you would be grounded and told that you cannot fly anymore. That's how serious it was. And yet, the evidence, we always say the evidence speaks for itself. If you're a true investigator, you don't take somebody's word for what's going on. You look at the evidence, and that evidence speaks. It cannot lie, it cannot make misleading statements. And the statements that we got, the evidence that we got, could be submitted to a federal court system and stand up uh, as evidence in that court. And so that's one of the things that we looked at was, if you follow the evidence is really clear that something is going on out there. And so we speak about it just to let people know, hey, this is our experience. You weren't there, you didn't see what we saw. But I can tell you from a pragmatic standpoint, and I'm not a believer. I don't believe in this stuff because belief takes faith.
Hmm.
And what we look at is that this stuff is not faith based. It's something that's out there. It's something that you can put a finger on. Um, in Stan's case, he's got hundreds of coins now that have reported, and some of them he's actually seen appear in the air and fall to the ground. So you know, and other people have seen them. So we don't have an explanation for it. we have theories,
Mhm.
and that's just how it is. So from the FBI, which in our case isn't doesn't mean full-blooded Indian, but Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Navajo Nation Rangers, we were recognized by the Bureau of Indian Affairs as federal officers. So a lot of our cases went to federal court or federal magistrate.
Judy, in your estimation of what John does, what was that attracted you to his stories and to his experience, with the X Files? What are some of the things that you have
Yeah,
experienced with John?
yeah. So just recently, about on November 3rd, I was doing laundry, and it was my late nephew's birthday. And we talk about dimes appearing and coins appearing, and I was just posted, like, happy heavenly birthday, to Devin and my late nephew, my younger sister Jennifer's son. And it was his birthday. And when I was doing the laundry, I turned around, and I was talking to him. I was saying things like, I miss you. I hope you're doing well. And then as soon as I turned around like this, a dime appeared right on my palm. And I was like, I didn't question, because I learned now not to question anymore. And I said, thank you. Thank you, Devin. And I knew it was from him. I just knew. It's just like, wow. It's just, when it happens to you like that, I'm just so amazed. And I was just talking to him because it was his birthday. And then I thanked him for giving me that dime, because I just know it's from him. I just, you just have that feeling. And I was reading John's book, The Clear Hearers, and I understand what he's talking about, that voice. And when you hear that voice, it's like a matter of action they want you to do. Either you're doing a healing ceremony, or you're doing something that you're not supposed to go, or it just stalls you from, like, happening, from something happening ahead of time. It just stalls you like that. And that's what I understand by his book. And I want to say this about police training. I did take police foundations about 27 years ago, and not have any training at all for the paranormal situations, because I did take the police foundations, and they didn't have it. And when I hear Jonathan's story about when I learned about the Navajo Rangers, and then I heard about John DeSouza, I go, wow. Like, and I did go on the FBI site too, and looked at one. But I just know, because it always happened. It happens to our people. It happens in our ceremony. We see them spiritually, or the physically, where, with me, with the Bigfoot, they actually do come in the physical. And sometimes they're just right beside me in the tree, walking along, or things like that, or they put something in front of me. So that's how I connect with the work that they've done as police, a ranger and an FBI agent. And like I said, the police foundations, they never had training on paranormal. How do you train for that? You don't. It's just a learning process as you go, as things happens to you. And of course, being native, we have our like sage, we have cedar, we have rocks, we have tobacco, especially to for protection, and sweetgrass. We have these four main medicines to help us protect us, and things like that. I like to learn more about, like, more of the medicines, more of the crystals and rocks and things like that. And because there's so much out there to learn. And with that being said, like, that's what we do in ceremonies. We, like, how do you say that, conjure spirits. And it's like, it depends on the ceremony and what we're doing, the healing ceremony, or we're manifesting something, or things like that. So it's, in a way, we always done that, in a way, in an indigenous perspective, through ceremonies.
You know, thank you, Judy, for that. You know, our native bloodlines are very sacred to us. But John, I'm going to turn a question over to you. You were the collector of real life X Files. Can you tell us more about that? I mean, are there stories you would like to share that you were given as an agent, and what was the outcome of some of the things that you experienced with these files?
Well, before I tell you that, Michelle, let me tell to Judy's point, and something that also Jonathan will know about as well, is that law enforcement in general, especially federal law enforcement, uh, it tends to be very it goes to the lowest level of work that they can do at all times. In other words, they want to keep things easy, simple, easy to understand, and closable. They want everything, every case to be closable. So that's why they will avoid, like the plague, they will avoid paranormal topics as much
Mm,
as possible. It's the same reason that law enforcement went after marijuana for many years in all its forms, and they avoided going after real criminals. The reason is because it's very easy to go after marijuana, to go after a plant in many instances, and it's very easy to close, easy to investigate, and easy to get rid of. And law enforcement just doesn't want to deal with difficult things. And there's nothing more difficult than paranormal topics because
right.
they can't quite put their hands on it. They can't quite without more thought. And they don't want to think. They don't want to think. They want to work as little as possible. And that's just the reality. That's just the reality that it is.
I guess suppose why the simplicity of going after something physical? Because you said they can't explain earlier in your comment that they can't explain what's been going on with the phenomena appearing but then disappearing, and yet so much emphasis from these agencies has been put on these paranormal files. To your point, the X Files, and I asked you a little bit a minute ago that you wanted to cover why it's so not sought after, but yet it's sought after, and there's millions and millions of dollars that are.
Yeah, it's unavoidable for them. So if you're if you're a federal park ranger working, God knows how much park rangers we have uh,
Mhm,
over
Mhm.
so much U.S. national parks that we have in this country, which is a lot, and they cover so much territory, and so they have to from time to time investigate crypto creatures, Bigfoot, and things like that. But they will never really put serious effort into it,
mhm,
or they'll try to avoid it as much as humanly possible because they consider it. They call those cases no win. It's like no win cases. There's no way for them to really win because if they do prove something solid, uh, their headquarters is going to reject it anyway. Their headquarters is going to reject it and say, "Go try again. Go try again with another investigative conclusion," and uh, and that's what they have to do. So it's something that they have to deal with on a regular basis, but it's something that they want to avoid as much as they can. When I left the FBI, I can tell you this: when the director of the FBI found out who I was and that I was leaving, he went and he passed a bunch of rules and regulations in the FBI so that they'll never have an FBI agent again that believes in these topics. And so they changed the psychological profile questions and all that.
mhm.
They changed them all to add in there you don't believe in UFOs. You've never heard voices that you believe are real. You don't believe in Bigfoot or crypto creatures, and they put those questions now into the entry psychological profile for FBI agents. Those are called like the DESOUZA questions that they now added into the psychological profile of FBI agent. That's how much, I'm just trying to give you a sense how much law enforcement does not
Mhm.
want to cover paranormal topics, and that's just an example of that. What do you think, Jonathan? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, there's up here on Navajo, stuff happens all the time to, say, police officers that are under Navajo Nation Police. They do not talk about it because it's not in their system. There's nothing in the system. I mean, we had to literally say on a Bigfoot case to put it under wild animal complaint and get it through the system that way, and then administratively close it at the end, just to keep the records straight, because it's all about that. It becomes almost political. It's kind of like a prosecutor, and I'm not saying all prosecutors, but some prosecutors look at a win-loss record, and they get into this situation where, have you ever noticed that somebody does this really heinous crime, the prosecutor or the AG will determine, oh, let's plea bargain this and let them plea out to a lesser charge. They'll still get some time, but maybe there was a homicide involved, but we'll still let them out after 10 years. And so this kind of stuff happens all the time. One of the things that I actually refused to do when I was in law enforcement is I did not follow my cases through the court system to see what the end result was, because it would be disappointing and you'd get frustrated. And frustration causes anger, and that anger can turn into rage. And pretty soon you're out there, we would say A and Bing somebody, assault and battery, because we know they're going to go into a revolving door system and they're going to pop out on the other side and laugh at you. And but we just try to be as professional as we can, do our jobs, and after that, it's not it's not ours anymore. So you see that with a lot of different stuff in law enforcement. Um, they get very afraid of this whole subject, and they can't explain it. They don't know what to do with it, and then somebody gets punched in the nose, that takes precedence.
Absolutely.
And just so everybody understands out there, we actually don't make money doing podcasts like this.
I saw that.
And on top of that, when you go to a conference, they don't pay you hardly anything. So I'm living on three different retirements now for everybody's. I've got 31 years in law enforcement, so there's that retirement from the Navajo Nation. And then I worked for a medical manufacturing company for 10 years, and I got a 401k and a ASOP out of that, associate stock ownership. And then now I've got Social Security. So between two retirements that are coming in on a regular basis, um, I can afford those little cans of real soft cat food to eat every day.
Excellent. Those are delicious.
Yep.
Nutritious.
He's
You
retired too. He should.
make do with what you can do, but you go to a conference and you put yourself out there, and yeah, there's people that'll ridicule you, but one interesting aspect that everybody needs to understand: everybody has been seeing these congressional hearings
Hmm.
on UFOs and paranormal stuff.
Mhm.
Everybody out there is waiting for the government to officially tell them this stuff is real. For Native Americans, we don't need the government to tell us it's real. It's there. It's been there for generations, for thousands of
Mhm.
years. and we live with it. And so, we don't have to, and there's a big distrust of the government anyway because of our shared history. Over
Mhm.
6,000 treaties that were made since 1492, and not one of them was ever kept. And I'm still waiting for money from the government for Sand Creek that they'll probably never pay me. But,
Wow.
it's just, that's just the reality. And so Native Americans are very distrustful of the U.S. government, even though we work for the government. And but we don't need to for them to explain to us, oh yeah, this stuff is real officially. What the government does is they put millions and millions of dollars into studying this subject, and then they give it to contractors. And the contractors don't fall under the Freedom of Information Act, so you can't find out what they looked at.
You know,
Absolutely.
John, I want to kind of tune in a little bit too. You know, having been in the private sector, me and Judy have put ourselves out there to share our stories as information so that we could create a safe place for people to come and share their stories. Because this subject matter is, in a lot of ways, in mainstream taboo. And all four of us have, you two have, law enforcement background. But Judy and I come from the private sector, and we put ourselves out there. So we share our stories, like, once again, so that people have a safe place to go. But not only that, they don't feel like they can be ridiculed and made fun of. And so we give them a sense of security because we've all been through some harrowing things in our life with this subject matter. And this is why we created this show. And no, we don't get paid very much. And you're living off retirement. I'm doing this as an information piece to get out there and share the stories that this phenomenon. I didn't ask for this to have this experience with the paranormal. You know, it was a part of something that was given me, and I embraced it, and now I'm sharing it.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I actually got to the point in 2011 where I said, I'm getting too old to worry about what people think about me.
Mhm.
And I'm sure John did the same thing.
And I'm sure Judy's going to be doing the same thing.
In 2011, oh my
I
goodness,
sure
that's
have.
a long time.
Go
Well,
ahead, John.
to Michelle's point before about my cases in the FBI, since you mentioned Jonathan, 2011, uh, this actually happened in 2011, and it was the Nome, Alaska case. We called it the case of the 24s, and I got to figure out the right way to recall that information, like the case number. But anyway, it was they made a movie out of it called The Fourth Kind. The Fourth Kind with Mila
Mhm.
Jovovich, and
Hmm.
it was back in 2011, and it was a case of the 24s. It was 24 people over a span of 24 months who disappeared in Nome, Alaska. They disappeared. I mean, and every single report there was during every single disappearance there was reports of lights in the sky of UFOs coming in and out of the forest, or there was reports of Bigfoot creatures that appeared at the same, and this was all happening at the same time in the same period. Both the UFOs and the Bigfoot creatures that were sighted around hunting areas and around areas where people would hike. I don't know why you would go hiking in Nome, Alaska, but in the winter, but apparently that's a thing. So, so we had a group of 24, and there was a huge scandal locally because all the people who disappeared were indigenous. I don't remember what tribe they were in that area, but they were all indigenous people, and so Local law enforcement was, of course, mostly white. Some of them were indigenous also, but they all investigated these missing persons, and they all came to the same conclusion: oh, it was just a bunch of drunks that just had accidents in the forest. They fell down crevasses. They fell off cliffs, and they disappeared, and that's what happened. And local law enforcement in Nome, Alaska, kept coming up with those conclusions. Well, there was a huge uproar against local law enforcement that they were racist in their conclusions, and that if these had been white people, they would have acted very, very differently. And I believe that's true,
Mhm.
because then ended up calling in the FBI at the end of this period. They ended up calling in the FBI, and then I also was told I could work on this case, and I showed up over there, and then the big wigs at the FBI told me to go home. They said to me that they had it covered with these headquarters agents that were going to be there and do the investigation. And so they did, and they did the investigation for about 6 months, and then they came to the conclusion that, again, it was just a bunch of drunk Indians who, native people who weren't able to navigate their steps and just fell down. And one of the things that we know about being drunk is that you don't haul your body up to a bunch of cliffs to disappear down those cliffs, or you don't haul yourself into the middle of the forest where there's some kind of crevasse that you can throw your body down so there'll be no trace of your body. I mean, it's not the nature of these things how this happened. So I'm very ashamed to say that at the end of 6 months, the FBI came to the same conclusion that local law enforcement said, that all 24 of these people just were a bunch of drunks with accidents that piled up and just happened to happen at this time. And it didn't matter what anybody told them about UFOs showing up, about Bigfoot creatures showing up in the forest during these disappearances. They didn't take any of that into account, and they just came to the same horrible conclusion that law enforcement came to. Um, Probably Jonathan knows this, but you can look up all these things in this database the FBI has online, called vault.fbi.gov, and you can go to that site, and it's almost like you do an informal FOIA request, but you can do it immediately. You go to that site, and then you can just put in, I guess you could put in Nome, Alaska, and search the case through that way, and see what you get back on the information request. Because it was one of the most shameful things I saw in the FBI, and it was just full of prejudice, and it's something that is being dealt with today. Even today, it's being dealt with by the Alaska State Police, which are considered a more reliable group to deal with these sorts of disappearances, which usually are mostly indigenous women. For some reason, the majority of these disappearances, like 90% of them, are indigenous women alone for some reason, and it just happens all the time. And it's really, really shameful chapter in the FBI's history when this investigation went forward.
Yeah, there's also cases of missing Native American women all over the nation,
All over, it's epidemic. It's
and
epidemic.
and they are not investigated.
Mhm.
There's case files, and they take up shelf space, but there's really nothing going on, no movement on these cases.
Mhm.
And sure, we have 27,000 square miles of land on Navajo, but by now the bodies would have come up, and we would have seen the skeletal remains. We would have been able to do the identification. Nothing. And yet somebody, a girl disappears, an Anglo girl, and there's a nationwide hunt for that one girl. And the police had contacted her and during a domestic. They traced it all the way back. The boyfriend went back to Florida. They ended up questioning the family over there, and he ended up committing suicide. The case was solved because of a nationwide effort. And yet, with Native American women, there's no nationwide effort. They're we're even being misidentified now. I don't know how many of you have seen the latest TikTok stuff. There's just near where I live. There's a school called the Star School, and the Star School is a grant school set up, and it's just right off the reservation. A lady who is living, she's leasing some land near there, and she is living in a tent. Saw a bunch of children walking on the trail. Some of them were running, some of them were, just, well, she videoed it, and she says, "Oh, what are all these aliens doing here? These Mexican aliens? Who brought them out here? Who dropped them off?" And she actually called the sheriff's department to report that uh, illegal aliens were being dropped off um, near her land. And they told her, they says, "We think it's the school." And she didn't believe them. She put it on TikTok. There were comments on there of people writing on TikTok saying, "Oh, nice targets," things like that. They told her to take her video down. What did she do? She blocked all the comments. She left the video up because she's making money on that video. And the sheriff's department says there's really nothing freedom of speech, right? So things like that happen all the time. I mean, you're within 4 miles of a Navajo reservation, and most of those kids that go to school there are native. What do you expect? So that kind of prejudice still exists even today. And she says that they need to be sent back to their own country. Well, they are in their own country. They were here before all you immigrants came here. So it's just kind of weird. um, is that the kind of world that we're living in now? And she says that she can't take the video down because of the TikTok itself won't allow her to. But other TikTokers say, "Oh, that's not true. She can pull it down anytime she wants." So she's just leaving it up there to make a political statement. Had to say it.
Well,
Just happened yesterday.
This is a sensitive subject, but it's one that needs to be said
yeah.
because our sisters are going missing. John, this is for John DeSouza. Why are they not being investigated? When there's so less emphasis on solving these cases. I mean, you mentioned certain things, but why is it intentionally not being investigated? Is it one of the not one of these simple cases that we spoke about, the Paranormal X-Files as well? Is it considered one of those too?
It could be, but there's no investigation usually to prove whether it is or not. uh, and a lot of it is it's the old prejudice that law enforcement has, that if an indigenous woman disappears, they immediately say, well, it's probably just one of theirs killed her. These people are killing each other all the time, so they have that in their DNA. uh, for generations, probably. And that's just their immediate assumption. That's immediately what they go to. So they just don't put forward any effort with this. This is an epidemic situation of indigenous women and girls disappearing all over the country, especially in what we call the Alaska Triangle. It's like
Mhm.
this territory that covers hundreds of
Mm-hmm.
thousands of miles of territory, and it's the amount of disappearances. It's just staggering. It's just staggering, and the fact that law enforcement just throws it on a pile and doesn't look at it again, it's just it's just inexcusable. And like I said, it's a very deep rooted prejudice that they feel and they have, and assumptions, prejudicial assumptions that they always make, and it's continuing. And Alaska state troopers are trying to do a better job with that, but it's very very difficult with the culture that you have in law enforcement these days, and and we have independent investigators like like David Paulides, who looks at these things,
Mhm.
and he tends to he tends to often go to a paranormal explanation of some of these disappearances, and I tend to agree with that. Even if you're thinking about uh, things as mundane as like a group of serial killers, because I consider serial killers to be a paranormal topic, because I talk about that a lot extensively in my book, Para Investigators, in the Para Investigators, that I've had many sit downs with serial killers who explain to me why serial killers are a paranormal topic, and that every serial killer is inhabited by ancient evil spirits that have been around for forever, and that so every single serial killer is whatever you want to term it, a sort of a superior being, because they have these ancient demons in them, guiding them, giving them special powers, giving them special abilities. And so I would say there is a chance that a large group of these are also involved in these disappearances that they know they will get away with for the most part because of the attitude of law enforcement in general. That's what I see in this topic. In this area.
Yeah, wouldn't it be wonderful if Dave Pilatus could do a
Wow.
documentary on indigenous missing people and then correlate it to paranormal events? That would be a subject matter that would get the attention of a lot of indigenous people. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, it's very sensitive towards law enforcement, and you don't want to go too hard at them, because there are a lot of law enforcement that want to do a good job, that want to do the right thing, and so forth. But they are handicapped by the attitude of their superiors and the culture of law enforcement. That's the problem there.
That's very true. Um, we saw the same thing throughout our careers, and just this almost a hopelessness sometimes because so much is going on that you can't address. And one of the reasons that me and Stan got as good as we did doing these investigations is we had people coming to us once word got out, and this is word of mouth. We call it Navajo telegraph. Word of mouth that go to these guys; they'll listen to you. Uh, our very first case was a Bigfoot case with over 30 witnesses in the Bloomfield area in New Mexico that reported it. They went to the local police department. The lieutenant actually came out and in front of the press started laughing and says, "I wonder how much these people have had to drink." Ha 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 ha. And so those 30
Wow.
people, the whole community in that area went away and they said, "We don't want anything to do with the police department." And they called the Rangers. And we ended up doing 3 days and 2 nights with night vision and forward looking infrared. We got footprint evidence. We got hair samples that came back after analysis, unknown carnivore, which is very unusual all by itself because there's a database of millions of DNA samples from all around the world. And for them not to even be able to identify it as some subgroup is amazing. And it just told us there was something much bigger going on there than what met the eye.
Mhm.
I think maybe sometimes the resources play an element to it too, as well, not having the mindset or the resources to go out there and investigate. Is that true, John?
Absolutely, yeah. It's but resources tend to follow priorities also. So, like Jonathan said, uh, when you have a missing white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, uh, it's a very different allocation of resources. So I don't. That's why I don't think resources is really an excuse that holds up for law enforcement because they change
Mm.
those resources pretty quick if it's something that's actually important to them. And when it's not something that's in their priorities, then suddenly the resources are gone. So I think that's what we're used to seeing, and that's what we're always going to see until something changes with law enforcement. And that time could be coming. It could be coming, but it's still not here right now.
Yeah, it takes time. We've actually, in one conference, we had she must have been 90 years old, Native woman come up to us. Her kids, her grandkids, her great grandkids were all surrounding her. And she was telling Stan and I about orbs that were circling her and UFOs and things like that when she was a young girl. And as she was talking to us, she had tears coming down her face because she had never spoken about it before. And she thanked us and told us that, thank you for saying what you did in the conference because this stuff happened to me. And I've never been able to talk about it. Her kids and grandkids, everybody, they were standing around with their jaws on the floor because she had never told anybody in her family what had happened. She lived with that stigma all her life. And just that
Wow.
release, that emotional release. And we did it mainly to help people because many of them were traumatized by what they've experienced. If it was a haunting, if it was Bigfoot, if it was a Navajo skinwalker, they were traumatized by this stuff. And we went in there and we didn't judge them. We listened to them. And we were able, in some cases, we were able to do something about it. And life goes on. So, that was our main goal was to sit and listen and evaluate. Yes, some of the stories didn't match up. Some of them were mistaken identities. Some of them were atmospheric conditions. But for the people that we did help that actually had stuff going on, uh, you know, to this day we don't know how many of them are still out there. We run into them every now and then. It's a good feeling when we make contact again.
It's really interesting,
Mm.
Jonathan. In my investigations and interviews that I've done, even in the paranormal realm, and their real life comes back into it. I did an interview with a woman who disclosed that there was underground trafficking going on, and part of her paranormal experience had to do with finding out about this organization, and she was taken down and then brought up. We haven't talked about maybe the missing women are going into the trafficking underground field.
Yeah, and I believe it was in the early 90s, there
Mhm.
was a case in New Mexico, uh, somewhere between Grants and Albuquerque, where they actually had a woman that escaped and got to the authorities. They raided the place and they found another girl. They had actually had them stripped naked and they were in dog cages. I mean, I'm talking something big enough for a dog. And they were curled up in that thing, and locked in. And, there are traffickers out here. The cartels do this and they ship them back to Mexico, or they put them out on the streets, they drug them up, and they're gone. Nobody sees them anymore. And that's a reality. So, you know, it's, it's the nature of the world today. And it can be frightening. When you look at it, when you see it from our
Mhm.
side, in law enforcement, we look at everything suspiciously. We look at everybody as, who's a threat. You sit with your back to the, to the wall if you can. It's it's just and you turn your gun sight away from people when they get too close, even though you don't carry a gun. And you're taught, treat everybody with the utmost respect and courtesy, and have a way to take them out if you need to.
There you go. But you got to carry guns in Arizona, Jonathan. That's very
That's
important.
right. That's right.
That's absolutely important. Yeah, it's that's one of the few things that the FBI, very few things that the FBI did better than anybody I've ever seen, which is kidnap victims and recovering kidnap victims alive and healthy. And when I've been a part of that, it's amazing to see the relief on parents' faces, relatives, family members. I mean, it's very very rewarding, and uh, I just wish the FBI would get back to that, to the basic things that they did so very well for over 100 years. And unfortunately, they're wrapped up in so many political issues and political things that they're doing that they lost the thread of these basic things that they did so well for so many years. So I'm hoping that they will in the future
Mhm.
get back to that. Kidnappings, bank robberies, things of that sort. That's what they're really good at, and counterterrorism too. Yeah, also.
It seems like, John, there's so
Mhm.
many distractions out there right now that people don't know where to go as far as the confusion that exists because it's all interconnected, but we have to find out from the top why this is happening to
Yeah.
our culture, to our sisters, to our brothers, and how the paranormal plays a role in this because there is that interconnectedness, and here we are today where
Mhm.
you guys are law enforcement talking about the paranormal and we're trying to understand what the interconnectedness to all of this is.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the most
Mhm.
the incredibly burgeoning phenomena that's going on now is how these UFO and alien sightings are going on all over the United States and all over the world, really. And it's been growing as a phenomena to make a lot of us who are tend to be more suspicious, like Jonathan said. It's starting to make us believe that these tend to be blue beam projects,
Yep.
where
Yep.
these the elite powers in control these globalist cabal members are preparing us for something. They're making these incredible things appear in the skies all over the world, and it's like different phenomena too. It's not just UFOs and aliens. It's like they're making religious figures appear in the sky. They're
Yeah.
making different like cities and different types of visions and appearances of all kinds of things happening all over, and it's happening at such a high rate. It's hard to catalog them anymore because there's so many of them, and it just doesn't stop, and it's amazing. And now we have these alien appearances that are happening also all over the United States and all over the world as well. And it just seems like they're preparing us for something to happen, something huge, something that's going to be worldwide, and something that's going to require everyone to come to the government, or I should say to the elites, and say, "Oh, please save us. We'll unify under you now. Uh, please do something to help us with these aliens." And I'm pretty sure they're going to step forward and say, "Okay, it's all right. We're in contact with the aliens, so we'll tell you what to do to make them happy, and you just need to do whatever we say." I think that's coming soon as well.
Can you tell us what Project Bluebeam is? From what I understanding, it is the coming of the Antichrist and somebody who will lead us to that savior mode type of
Project
scenario.
Project Bluebeam is just an old-fashioned word from, like, I think it's like from the 70s or something, and it's just an old-fashioned word referring to the government, to international bodies, to their ability to make holograms appear in the sky and in other places. That's all Project Bluebeam means. But what they are doing today is more sophisticated than holograms. It's something a step, several steps above, because we believe that these holograms have solidity. They have temporary physical existence. They're not just holograms. They're not just pretty lights in the sky forming something. But Project Bluebeam is still how we refer to this technology, which is much more advanced than Project Bluebeam now. It is, but it's the only way we know to refer to it. And this is being expanded. It's being expanded all over the world, and it's a huge,
Mhm.
huge project. And there's many of us who actually believe that 911, the many of the planes that supposedly went into the twin towers were themselves these breakaway holograms, also, because it's really not possible for planes to disappear into a steel cage steel cage building like that. It's not possible. So they were using that way back then in 2001, as far as I can tell. And so what they have today is much more sophisticated. That is what we refer to as Project Bluebeam. Not really accurate, but it's the best way we know to refer to this kind of technology, which is
Mhm.
technology that's above us.
Yeah.
It's way. That's what it is.
This is really a very intense and controversial and everything that we wanted to address here on this show today. Judy, have any thoughts around what John shared today? I mean, as far as your concerns or opinions to some of these subject matters?
Yeah. Like, yeah, it is very, sensitive topic, and especially for a nation, because it is true. It is true about, like, our people are at the bottom, and they don't even investigate, right. And not only for women too, but men too, all indigenous people, because we're all missing. Like, my cousin is still missing, and where are the resources that, yeah, they did that, and they did this, but what about, like, the other resources, and, like, and having a station. It wasn't, I don't think it was, I go up there, but I know, I was telling my cousin there, like, is there a station set up? Like, where did he search, and who came in, and what came in, what did they do? All this stuff I was asking my cousin, the sister, and she couldn't really answer me. I go, well, because I have that training, of that police training, like, we know how to set these stations up and things like that. And we don't have that as indigenous people. I don't think, yes, there are search and rescues in different reserves. I even contact my reserve and ask them, can you go and help my cousin look for his son, and they didn't respond to me. So it's like a sensitive topic. And for that being said, I think we need to use our medicine people to go out and help in this way. Help, like when I remember when I was talking to Jonathan on the phone the first time, and he asked me about the Alaskan people. I didn't have no idea what he was talking about. But now I did watch The Fourth Kind like so many times. Like I don't know how many times. It's one of my favorite movies. And now I know what you're referring to. So yes, I was thinking like, wow, this would be great for me and Michelle to go up and investigate and interview the people ourselves and see if we could bring some more medicine people up there to even help them if they're open to that. And by that, what I mean by using our medicine people are, doing ceremonies like shake tents and or just to the spiritual realm to help them even connect with our loved ones on the other side and see what happened to them. I'm going to share this with you because this really happened. My sister, who used to work at a youth shelter, and she was sad and she stayed home, and she told me what happened. And like one of the youth, they found one of the youth, they said committed suicide. That's what they were told. But that night, that youth came to me in a dream, like came to me, and I described her. She said her name. She had a baby on her back, and she told me, "Tell my sister that I'm okay." And I'm there, okay. And then she said to me that she was murdered, and the I'm going to say this: the Ottawa police said that she they say that I committed suicide, but no murder. She told me, and she showed me the man. She showed me the man too, and I could describe him. And when I told my sister that, and I said, "It's up to you to go tell your boss," because I don't know how to approach that. I really don't know how either, like that sensitive matter. And so I told my sister, but my sister no longer works there anymore, so I don't know what happened to that. So this kind of information, like as a spiritual person or medicine person, you want to call me or whatever. I don't call myself a medium or anything like that. But these things, these messages that calls you, I think that's the way we need to go to help our people. Because even like her telling me that the Ottawa police is going to say it's suicide when she was actually murdered, just to close the case easy, right? And instead of that, because they didn't want to have another number to the murdered Indigenous women and girls. So I think with that being said, I believe like we need to talk to our leaderships. We need to talk to get back to our traditional ways of the matriarchal system, because the patriarchal system is not working for our people. And I think
Yeah,
that's what we need to do to. Mhm. And I know a lot of people
you know,
too, like a lot of mediums out there or gifted people that can help us, you know.
Judy, it's really interesting. I had a sister who had a best friend in high school, and what was very known on the reservation is hitchhiking. And this young lady went to go get Christmas presents to her family. It's a solved case now. And she went from the reservation to Phoenix, Arizona, and happened to get in a situation, got a ride from the wrong gentleman, and then 20 something years later her dental records were done, and they found that that was her missing. So it was a murder case, and because her family never gave up in investigating that
Hmm.
case and kept it open or reopened and reopened when it wanted to be closed.
Hmm.
And I got a call from my sister saying they solved the case of her best friend from high school. And so if we don't give up as family members, and reaching out to our community to keep these things open and solve these cases, it can be done. And we're talking something
Yeah.
20 something years later. But it was wonderful to hear that. Now the family can rest. They can go on their way and find peace. And so, although this has been a
Mm-hmm.
very, very intense conversation today, and we have two gentlemen here who are in the law enforcement industry who have seen these cases, it is wonderful to address some of these things because we need to speak about the things that are going on in our world today and give people a
Mm-hmm.
safe place, and this is a safe place to share these stories. And we appreciate you guys coming on today and appreciate John's background, both John's um, backgrounds, and Stan, who's not there. You guys have seen many traumatic things, but things keep going on, and we need to help the community and solve these things. Any last words from John, or even you, Judy? Anything else would you like to share?
Well, I like to add about the policing, and I just posted this on Facebook where in Saskatoon, they did the Starlight Tours, which is the police officers bring out the Indigenous men out in the country and right in the bush area and then leave them there, and especially in wintertime. And that's still ongoing, and it's too bad that it's still ongoing. And the last officers that got charged for that like 30 years ago, they only got a
Mhm.
slap on the wrist. So that's another thing that, these indigenous issues with the law enforcement and all that should be addressed more with the leadership, and to have people come together and help solve these cases, which are doing the ceremonies and doing reaching out to the medicine people to help them, because we can tap into that, what they call it, the paranormal world. And to us, that's reaching out to the spiritual realm of things to help them, because these people that are in spirit form now are giving us these messages, and are helping in a way, even like the work I do, like that, one client would say, oh, Judy, like, I just want to know what's are they okay? And they would come and appear, and I would give them a sense of relief of, yes, this is what you will do. This is, give her some sunflowers or whatever. I'll say something and that they could, like they, oh my God, those were her favorite flowers. And go, yeah, this is what she wants. And so it gives them like a sense of closure too, for the family as well, and for the healing. And that's where these paranormal interdimensional beings, or whatever you want to call them, like in our nations that we all have, we're talking about the fairies, we're talking about the little people, the Sasquatch, the dragons, and um, I'm just Wendigo, and all these beings, spiritual beings, are there to help us heal, to help us guide us through the healing process of the grief that we go through when we have a loss in our community.
Thank you, Judy. Appreciate
Mhm.
that. John, any last words? Love John before our show ends.
Yes, I'm. This has been a tremendous uh, experience because I'm getting ready a presentation for Judy's event, and I was debating between a couple of different ones where whether it was I was going to do a presentation on extra dimensionals or actually para investigators as well, and now it's like I don't, or even clear hearers. I don't now. I don't know which topic would be better because they're all very important. So this has done nothing to get me to what presentation I'm going to do. So I'll have to put more thought into it and more consultation with Jonathan there as well. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank everybody that tuned in today. Um, Maybe you got a little more than you bargained for, but you know, I like to be opinionated. I'm of that age now where I can have an opinion. So, so, but the thing that I always think about is we, all of us, have a spiritual sense, and that's what's been missing from the
Mhm.
world today. That that spiritual connection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about going to a brick and mortar church building. I'm talking about the spirit that each one of us possesses. And sometimes when you don't feed that type of spirit, it lies dormant. And so people actually are out there looking for something, and it's within you. You just have to kind of like nurture it
Mm-hmm.
and water it a little bit, and it'll bloom on its own. But you have to have that ability to look inside yourself and say, "Yeah, I want that, and I'm going to search for it."
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming on the show today. John, Judy. It's been a wonderful conversation. It is one that has been needed on the Native Paranormal Crossroads. Please subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear from you. And also tune in next week. We've got more wonderful content coming. As one of our paranormal rangers, we will review his book, that is Stan Milford. And we are so wonderful to have our audience here because you make it happen. And the conversation may have been a little bit intense, but it was well needed. And is like John DeSouza says, now I can't know what to do. I have to look at my talk, and maybe you need to do both, John. And we appreciate. Is there any way they can get a hold of you, you and Jude? Is there a way? Can you, John, tell us where they can find you?
I'm always at johntama.books.com, and it's very easy to find. Or I'm told most people just Google my name, John DeSouza, as it's spelled there, and they find me that way. And all of my books are available, and all of my material is there as well. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you guys again soon.
Judy, where can they find you? On the internet or Facebook?
They can find if they Google me, they might get the tax court case from 2011. So I will Sakani Art. I do have a Facebook page, and under Sakani Art, and there should be an event page there, and just contact me through there through sakniart@gmail.com. And I do have a form available for the event just to keep track of the numbers because of the capacity of the building that we're having. And now that I put the poster out with John DeSouza, and people are putting their forms in, and we're getting up there. So it gives us enough time in case we do need a bigger venue. So that's good to know. And we looking forward to that. And John, Susan, you can talk about any subject. They all matter. They all are important, and it's all connected to the ceremonies the Cree people do, because we know what you're about is really happening. And another thing too, I want to add: the government knows all this stuff. They just do, and like Jonathan Dover says, we always had known this as Indigenous people, and we always had this connection with the paranormal, or whatever you want to call it, but interdimensional, or whatever, the spiritual realm. So yes, they can get a hold of me through open. I love talking about everything and anything, about not only just about Bigfoot. That's why I added the word Wahaktoan in the event name, because it does mean that we can cover all the topics. And the speakers that are going to be coming next year, we're at full capacity with speakers, and I'm very honored that we got new speakers coming in, like Rick McKenzie, Pat McCrae. These are like Pat McCrae is just so awesome, and Ian Snyder, and Tom, and Gin, and James, and Mike Patterson coming in too, and we're all, it's just like we're gonna have fun, and you guys, of course. I can't wait. Thanks.
Well, we look forward to your event. We look forward to your event. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for your audience, and we'll